Crimson Desert is doing something that almost never works, trying to be 10 different games at once, and yet somehow the footage we've seen from the game still looks like the developer Pearl Abyss has put together an incredibly cohesive game. And a lot of what they've shown feels like there are really deep systems behind them: the progression, the faction territories, exploration puzzles, and a camp hub, and even bosses that look like they're designed to play you differently depending on the encounter. It's really surprising to see this much depth in a game. So in today's video, I'm breaking down every big feature in Crimson Desert to explain just what exactly this game is, how it's going to play, and why I think it should be on your radar. Crimson Desert takes place on the continent of Pywel, and the developers have been pretty open that the world is structured with 5 distinct regions: Hernand, Pyloon, Demonis, Delesia, and of course the Crimson Desert itself. Each region has different environments and stories within, but what I've liked the most here is that Pywel isn't presented to us as a giant map that we just have to figure out. When you're dealing with massive open worlds like this, there's typically not enough to do, to be honest. Exploration doesn't really feel rewarding because it just feels like things were kind of randomly placed as filler. The developers behind the game have said that Pywel is really a living and seamless world, but hanging over the wilderness, the cities, and the ruins is something much bigger as well: the Abyss. But more on that a little bit later. The world and the exploration behind it really feels layered. You'll of course have travel that happens on the ground, as well as plenty of fights and battles to keep your attention, but there's also a lot of verticality and even mounts in the game, so let's talk about traversal. With a map as massive as Pywel in Crimson Desert, the traversal is, in my opinion, a really big deal, and honestly it might be one of the biggest selling points of the game. Now of course you're going to have basic options like horseback or walking around on foot, but there's a lot more that you're going to have access to in the game. You're able to climb various cliffs and surfaces, use a glider for long drops and crossing gaps, and there's even a grappling hook for pulling to surfaces or swinging. And I think one of the best parts about the grappling hook is that you can use it to swing yourself in a direction and then smash into the ground as another type of attack. The more you see from this game, this is very much a game where if you see something or you're creative, you'll have a lot at your disposal to reach it or really make it happen. And those options are great, but the developers went a little crazy with it too. There are mounts in the game allowing you to ride things like bears and dragons, and while that's pretty cool, what if I told you that you can pilot a dwarven mech suit that fires missiles? Yeah, Crimson Desert has that too. Now that mech suit is really cool, and you're going to acquire it via a side quest in the game, but it really feels like the game is truly preparing to reward you for straying off the traditional path. And did I mention that the mech that you can actually customize it to your liking? Yeah. But outside of those options, you'll have access to a single, double, and triple jump at your disposal, which you can then swap to your wings to glide after you do those jumps. So when you imagine combining these different ways together, you can begin to see why the hype for Crimson Desert is really warranted. And as great as the traversal is, the combat is a great selling point too. What the developers have released so far sounds incredible, but like every game, it's up to them to really nail it. The best way that I can describe the combat in Crimson Desert is a combination of brutal and fast-paced. There's a weight to the combat, and you'll even find physics playing a pretty heavy role here. You'll have access to multiple weapon types like swords, shields, spears, great swords, axes, and even a few range options too. But it's not all about offense though, as your defensive timing will matter through blocking, parrying, and the ability to evade attacks. And what really sets this apart, in my opinion, is the ability to leverage physics and the grappling mechanics. For example, you could grab an enemy and then slam them into a small watchtower in the environment that could then shatter and crumble. And the best part, that small watchtower that you just destroyed will remain destroyed in the game rather than just randomly appearing again later or never being able to shatter to start with. What I respect the most about the combat in the game is that it gives you an opportunity to kind of breathe a bit. Whether you're using kicks, grapples, or the traversal to kind of create space, you're able to play the way that you really want to play and what you find the most effective for the fight that you're in to be successful. You'll also have access to an Axiom bracelet that allows you to imbue weapons with elemental damage to burn, freeze, or stun your enemies. Those mounts that we talked about earlier too, you're actually able to fight on the backs of horses, bears, and so much more. And oddly enough, there's even a bullet time-like mechanic that you'll be able to leverage, like when you're shooting arrows, for example. What's weird to me is that I've seen a lot of comments about the game patterning itself after the Souls-like games, but I don't really think the combat is as reliant on timing or pattern recognition here. I think instead, I'd say it's probably more similar to an old school 2D fighting game where you're really rewarded for mastering a wide array of skills when you go into battle. But really, regardless of your approach, the combat here is deep unless you craft a playstyle that makes sense for you. A slept-on element of Crimson Desert is that the fights aren't just again one or two enemies, you will have full-on large-scale battles. So instead of these being set pieces, the game has shown 30 plus AI fighting at a time with Cliff, the character you control, weaving in and out of the battles. And when you look at most open world games, these battles are fake or just background fodder. But in this game, you're going to see continuous waves of fighting, dynamic castle sieges, chaotic field fights, and even fortress reclamations. It's really not just about soldiers either, as you'll see trolls, ogres, and other beasts take part here too. And honestly, I love what they're doing here because you can quickly find yourself going through the layers of the large-scale battles. You might start by taking part in a large-scale battle outside of a castle, and then find yourself progressing through until you reach more close-quarter combat in and around it. But the depths of the castle, that could be where a boss resides, and now you went from a massive battle outside to fighting a boss deep inside of the castle. And when you boil it down, I think that's the beauty of Crimson Desert. There's so many different systems that interact with one another that ultimately lead you down a path that becomes a moment you won't forget. But speaking of bosses, a great game can lose all its momentum if the boss fights aren't great. And I think luckily for us, it looks like Crimson Desert is approaching things the right way here. Throughout all the footage they've shown so far, the bosses seem to range from grounded duels to these really absurd encounters that include massive creatures and even mechanized enemies that'll have you scratching your head on how to approach them. The bosses in Crimson Desert have a lot of variety. For example, Hex Marie has a gimmick where she spawns a horde of skeletons and drops magic mimes that deal explosive damage. The Stag Lord is more of a conventional, large, and powerful warlord who leaps and charges to close the gap while wielding, you guessed it, a really heavy sword. And then you have something like the Queen Stoneback Crab, which is a rock-covered hill of a creature that gives off major Shadow of the Colossus vibes to me. You'll really have to approach each boss fight differently and use what you've learned in all your other battles to be successful here. And defeating certain bosses will actually give you the ability to unlock or use that boss's signature skill or weapon, really giving you another incentive to take them down. And the gear you earn from a boss gives you unique abilities with high impact upgrades. You'll get loot from normal enemies, but the gear that bosses drop will really empower you. And if you're enjoying this breakdown and enjoy deep dives like this one, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I've got a goal to hit 10,000 subs before the end of the year, and I've got plenty more content like this dropping soon. Now, whether you're taking out bosses or exploring the world, you'll grow your power in the game through a variety of ways. Equipment, materials, and new abilities or skills will really be the core of how it happens. But what's most interesting here is that there are no levels for progression in this game. I know that feels super weird in an RPG for it not to have XP or a bar to fill or fear of out-leveling content, but it's really refreshing to see how the devs behind Crimson Desert are approaching progression. So instead of leveling in the traditional way that you're used to, your power will primarily come from Abyss artifacts. You can discover these in a bunch of different ways, but some of the ways you'll come across them are killing bosses, clearing strongholds, exploration, hidden chests, completing main and side quests, and through a layer in the sky known as the Abyss. The Abyss artifacts are going to increase your core stats like health and stamina, but they do a lot more as well. They'll help you unlock new skills, enhance existing skills, increase the potential of your combos in combat, and really amplify your damage output. It feels like great game design here because they're tying your power to how much of the world you actually engage with in Crimson Desert. So this also means that if you try to rush into a new region without upgrading, you can probably prepare for pain. The enemies in each region are going to remain fixed in their difficulty, which means that you scale your power in the game, but the enemies don't. And no, there is no difficulty option in Crimson Desert either. Now, in terms of your weapons have a tiered progression in the game, and you'll be able to do things like buy better gear from vendors, upgrade existing gear at blacksmiths, and enhance your equipment using materials. Something to pay extreme attention to, though, will be the Abyss gear and the enhancements that come with it. These weapons are going to support multiple sockets that could give you bonuses like increased attack speed, increased critical chance, and similar enhancements. And you'll be able to get the Abyss gear in both weapons and armor through specific NPCs in the game like regional witches. Each socket also has tiers, so your Abyss gear can compound in strength as you progress in the game. But something that's really interesting is that the developers have been on record by saying you can technically beat the game with basic gear if you have enough skill. And I already know there's a sicko out there that's waiting for this challenge, so good luck to them. It really feels like there is so much in this game already that the Greymane Camp just feels very far-fetched. I mentioned earlier that the core of this game is about Cliff rebuilding what was lost, and your Greymane Camp is going to be your main hub for your travels, and there's way more depth here than I initially imagined. The camp is basically going to be where a lot of your day-to-day moments happen that also shape your journey. You'll be able to do things like cook meals to restore and enhance your health, spirit and stamina, purchase items from vendors, and even produce your own resources through your farm. As you travel across Pywel, you're going to reunite with friends that can return to your camp, and new Greymanes will even hear of your camp and arrive from time to time. As they all make their way to your camp, they can actually take on roles and be dispatched across Pywel to complete missions for you. And having them complete these missions could reward you with items like currency, wood, ore, and different materials to cook with or perform alchemy. You're actually also able to send them to blockaded areas or enemy-controlled zones where they can help reduce enemy presence over time. So while you're sieging a castle or maybe fighting a boss, your faction can be working for you in the background. But at your camp, you can also customize hairstyles, add tattoos, and even outfit dyes. The dyes can be discovered in the world or brewed through alchemy. The Greymane Camp really, to me, feels like it's part mission control, part camp. It's a place to regroup and recharge, but it's also very strategic and allows you to deploy your squad to grow your faction at the same time. But life in Pywel will extend much past your camp. When you travel to towns and cities in the game, you'll be able to interact with blacksmiths, tailors, vendors, and provision suppliers. And while you can upgrade your weapons, armor, and outfits, the towns really shouldn't just be treated like a shopping hub. Because the residents in these areas could ask you for protection, you could be tasked with a delivery mission, have a missing person investigation brought to you, or even have bandit scouting tasks. These are all themed around being smaller scale stories that really unfold alongside the narrative, but they're completely optional, but still fun. At the same time, it's not all PG in Pywel, as law enforcement does exist in the game. So if you harm civilians, attack residents, or commit crimes, you run the risk of guards and townsfolk turning hostile. What are the potential consequences, you ask? Well, you could have to pay a fine or potentially serve jail time. But there's always the option of fighting your way out of it and saying, these fists are rated E for everyone. But would this really be an RPG if you couldn't fish? In Crimson Desert, you'll be able to fish, hunt, mine, gather resources, perform alchemy like we talked about before, and craft tools. Fishing and hunting will help you receive ingredients for cooking. Gathering flowers and insects will fuel your alchemy, allowing you to create medicines that really enhance your combat performance. Mining for materials will help you upgrade your gear, and there's even more advanced tools that can be crafted using rare resources you acquire. There is a lot to do here in Crimson Desert, if you couldn't already tell. I've talked a little bit about the Abyss already, mostly referencing the Abyss artifacts, but what exactly is the Abyss? Well, the best way to describe it is that it's this mysterious, chaotic, and kind of dangerous realm that is really the central force that's threatening to plunge the world of Pywel into disarray. Fragments of the Abyss can and will fall into Pywel throughout the game, and they'll bring hostile, otherworldly, and magical threats. It's a destination that you're going to explore to uncover secrets, attempt to restore balance in the world, and ultimately confront the source of the chaos in the game. If you're a fan of fast travel though, I have good news for you. Traces of the Abyss are used to unlock fast travel locations across the map, and yes, I can already hear you cheering. So when you're in the Abyss, you can expect to encounter plenty of puzzles as well, manipulating environmental obstacles to unlock secret areas, utilizing magic abilities to open massive temple doors, and even engaging in real-time destruction to solve pathfinding puzzles. They've kind of all been showcased at this point. And if you've played any of the Zelda series, you can think of these as similar to the shrine puzzles in those games. The world of Pywel is also filled with unmarked secret locations and puzzles that require you to pay a bit more attention to the environment. There's even Red Dead style treasure maps that you can unlock to find secrets in the game. And while I've talked exclusively about Cliff as the main playable character, you will unlock 2 additional playable characters alongside your journey. Each of the 2 playable characters will have distinct weapons, skills, and also combat styles. You'll have access to Damian, an extremely agile female character who has a great sword combined with a pistol for quick shots and spell-like abilities. Then you'll have Uno, a heavy tank-like character who specializes in 2-handed axe attacks, but also has a hand-mounted cannon that can be used for range damage too. When you're in the open world, you'll be able to switch between these characters, and there's even individual quest lines for the 2 extra characters. So each character is going to have their own skill tree and gear that you'll progress through, but still you'll find that Cliff remains central character throughout the game. You can easily see how Crimson Desert is trying to be what feels like 10 different games at once, but somehow it seems to work. We have to wonder if all these ambitious features are going to feel connected or leave the game feeling just fragmented and disjointed, but we'll find out at launch. What's the biggest feature you're excited to use in Crimson Desert? Let me know in the comments below, and you can check out more of my videos from my channel on the screen right now. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you on the way down.